We are
Didi
and Arma, and in our daily lives we support people on the path of self-liberation. We teach time-tested energy skills like Qigong, Tai Chi, internal alchemy, traditional nutrition and meditation.
We help people release stagnation, build energy, and become aligned with themselves and their purpose in life.
In this podcast, we share the methods, skills, and solutions that helped us, our students, and now hopefully you move forward.
Let's explore transformation together.
And we're talking about Tai Chi and spirituality. What a combination.
Wow. Yeah. So how did that start for you? When you started training Tai Chi, how did you look at spirituality at that time?
Well, I didn't. I was not aware of that.
Okay.
Well, the word sometimes, I don't know. This word wasn't really defined yet for me in my life, right? My mom used to always say when I was young, it's like, oh, you're so spiritual. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know, right? But I think before the training, what got me into training was a book by Eckhart Tolle called The Power of Now. When I read that book, it was a time in my life that I actually needed that book. Because my life was such a rough landscape, you could say. And I think when you're looking for something comes in your life, right? So this book came in my life. Yeah. And maybe the listeners have already or have also read that book and maybe found that some of this stuff comes in your life exactly the moment you need it, right? Yeah. So I started reading this book, and this book is all about a sort of a separation. There's two of you, it says in the book, and I was so fascinated by that. And the funny thing is, then that summer when I read that book, I met you, and I came in contact with Tai Chi. So that's the same thing, right? It's sort of something awakens in me, and then things come in my life. People come in my life. Tai Chi comes in my life, and then it's begun. But to say that I was looking for spirituality, no, I cannot say that because that word was not. It's probably in that book also, but it's more that something shifted in me, and Tai Chi is something that. I was fascinated with because it was when I encountered it was really slow and soft and still concentrated, and that also did something with me. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine that in the training, spirituality was not at first something that was mentioned.
It was not per se mentioned, but it started right from the start, right? It was immediately there because I was put in a standing position by my teacher and really forced into my body. It was a low stance, pretty low stance, and it was heavy, and it took a lot of endurance to build up stamina, to stand that long, and constantly being confronted with your body. And what my teacher actually did, he created this separation that was what Eckhart Tolle was talking about, right? There's the ego, there's the resistance, there's I want to get out of this position. No, stay there. This internal fighting that's happening. And on the other hand, you have this observer in you that becomes aware of like, oh, is this open? No, this is not open. Right? It's just this. So this separation of this observer and the observed was happening immediately. Yeah. But my ego, it didn't win, but it was. You get so confronted with that. Yeah. This inner mumbling is like, oh man, why do I want to give up? Why do I want to step out of this position? And who is it that says no? Just stay there. Just keep on training daily. And it's this whole thing was right there from the start. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I can relate.
Yeah, but it all comes from a martial standpoint. So my teacher is not saying to me is like, okay, Armand, you're going to stand because it's going to make you grow spiritually. No. It's like construction, opening the body, and of course he knew that, right? Yeah. But it was too early to talk about that thing. Yeah, it's just first get the person in the body. Yeah, and
But I think when you started training, because you started training first. And for me, it was also that at that time, I don't think I was ready for it. Mm-hmm. But a little bit later on, of course, I picked up all this stuff from you. And I was going my own route. But in the meantime, I did start some training with you, and we did the Qigong, and I did the yoga, of course. And but I just wanted to do it because it made me feel better.
Right.
It made me in my body more. And I think it is funny, when I was a child, I always wanted to dance. I asked my mom to have ballet lessons when I was, I think, 2 or 3.
Yeah. Really small. Yeah.
And she said, no, you can only start when you're 6. And on my 6th birthday, I said, now I want to go to ballet. Ballet, dancing and being in my body, that really made me feel alive. And, it felt so, I was one with myself.
I think it's the same thing as I was describing, right? Only coming from a different one. Yeah. I had to be forced to stand still, you could say, right?
Yeah.
And you allowed yourself to move and be free, right? So, but it's all about the body.
Exactly.
And if you're in your body, you're not in your head.
Yeah.
Right? And that's it's so simple. It.
It is. And then when my ballet teacher, she retired, and then I was kind of in between, what do I do? And then you started training. But I did wanted to go to that feeling again, because it did more than just the exercise.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot more going on, but you are not aware of what you're not aware of yet, right? So exactly. It's a process. So, yeah.
And then we got the book. You had the book of Eckhart Tolle, and of course I read it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it did make a big impact. And but it was kind of an understanding. So I did understand what's on the page. I could not really comprehend the whole thing yet.
Sure, you can. It's like shining a light, right? In the distance, it's like you can only see as far as the light goes, right? But you're moving.
Yeah, and you see there is something there. So you want to reach beyond and make steps. But for me, it was that I was not really. I didn't really know what I was reaching for at that time.
Right.
I saw something there. I was going for it. I had no idea what I was going for.
I guess it felt good, but it resonated already with the spirit within.
Yeah.
But I mean that's so subtle, I guess, right? So in the background because of all our mental, emotional noise that's still going on. But and I think that's the great thing about this book, that he that the book sets that in motion. There's this internal shift when you read it, and that's all you need, because the spirit really wants to come out, right? It wants to be there. Yeah. So, although, I've also met people who said, I read the book, but and I was like, so what do you think, about it? And it's like, total rubbish. And I'm like, okay. It doesn't work for you yet, right? And that, which is fine.
Yeah.
But for us, it surely did, right? So it set it in motion. So coming from the training, it's not only these standing exercises, it's also all this partner training where you're constantly confronted with your own resistance, right? And force so that was a process in itself as well. So it was a pretty rough wake-up process in the training because of all the martial training, right? Also being confronted with all these bruises and it's
And I think when you started, it was first it started on a physical level.
Yeah.
So it was, and for me as well, when I trained with you, we were probably, you started meditating as well, and I did the meditation training with you. So it was kind of, and I was doing the yoga, which was very based on meditation. Yeah,
it was a soft sort of yoga, right?
With a lot of meditation and stilling. So that was kind of that was a big part of it. But a big change came when you went to Thailand.
But already before there was some sort of, because you say, okay, the training was physical. Well, it was until it became more energetic, because also then if you stand long enough, right? I was standing for years and years and years. I mean, the energy body also sort of awakens, and because you're getting more still and you get to know your body in really intimate, right? It's like, okay, this shoulder, this elbow, and then it becomes open and open and open, and it's like, what's that?
Yeah.
There's a feeling there. I started to feel my hands, feel my arms, around my throat, around my head. I got all these sensations, and I'm like, wow, I'm in a science fiction movie. Yeah, I remember coming to my teacher to the studio. I'm like, man, I don't know what's happening, but it really feels like, oh, I'm alive now, right? It's so that there was already a shift. And I started talking a lot about Taoism with my teacher as well, with Roel. So and that was great. So I think there was already a shift in these 11 years that I trained with him from really physical entry, but that got conditioned, right? It got more into the energy. And I think this spirit was like ready for a sort of a next step. And we were talking about Taoism, and I was like, yeah, Taoism, awesome, but man, if I want to go to China, I need to learn how to talk Chinese and whatever to get into that, right?
Yeah.
Because I was ready to go such a length. And then Mark Rasmus came into my life, right? Yeah. Because I think there was a natural shift going from a place where the spiritual thing is like the entry already of the training, if you know what I mean. With Mark Rasmus, the first time I met him, it's like we were in a training. He says, "Okay, Armand, so what do you hope from this training?" And I hear myself say, "It's like, oh, I like the Tai Chi thing, I like the Kung Fu stuff, but I really want to know about the spiritual stuff, right?" I hear myself saying this word, the spiritual thing, and he was like, "All right, and off we went, because he's a hermetics teacher, and that's hermetics is a method of spiritual growth." Right? A very beautiful step-by-step method of arriving there. Yeah. So, it shifted from more physical to more still. But, I couldn't have been ready for that, I guess, without everything I trained before, without the physical thing and being conditioned and being able to sit still for a long time. Right, that was also a thing. I was already used to this because I would stand, I would sit, and I would, it was no problem for me to stand really still for a long time. Because that's so important for spiritual growth, is this stillness, right? So I was ready for this thing. I could concentrate. So I think when starting with Mark, we were starting to, observe the coming and going of thoughts, really getting into meditation. Concentration exercises, I was really ready for that. So I made, huge steps when I started training with him.
We built a foundation with Roel, absolutely, because a lot more was going on.
Oh, for sure.
Because we read the book, meditation, training. I started with the food component. So we were eating so much differently when we started.
Oh, man.
And that made a huge difference as well. But it was also lifestyle.
Well, it reduced step by step with information that you brought in the house, and we implied it. It reduced the noise levels, coming more into a stillness state, right? Yeah. So this stillness is, I think, if we're talking about spirituality, is that the stillness was accumulating more and more and more in our lives. We got more focus. We were more concentrated on like, okay, what do we do? What don't we do anymore, right? We made choices. Step by step, building a very strong foundation where, the next step could work on. And, a lot of that came into our lives through Roel. So we are forever grateful for that,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think, we built this foundation and we really put both our inputs together.
Yeah, the expertise is sort of mixed, right?
Absolutely. And then the first time you went to Mark Rasmus, I was studying traditional Chinese medicine, and it was I was still studying about 5-element food, but I was going towards the herbs.
Yeah.
And this is also kind of we were just talking about it before this podcast, that was kind of a funny shift because food is more on the physical body.
Yeah, the foundational level, you would say.
And then herbs is more on this, spiritual level. It can be physical, but the way I love to imply it is to really look at it from a more spiritual level.
Spiritual, right? Also emotional level. Where can we, balance out? It's really this fine-tuning thing, right?
And what you were going to Mark Rasmus and really feeling the energy, and we were really practicing this together. And then I got into this world with herbs, and I met people that, they talk to trees, to herbs, and I was like, wow, this is like a fairy tale country. But I was able to, because I was able to feel my own energy.
Yeah.
Was building the ball. I could feel others' energy, but I could also feel the energy of plants. And this that was shifting my whole awareness of what's out there and the connection.
Without any woohoo, right? So it was like it's so tangible, right? And I also wanted to say is because if you go through this hermetic training, you have of course the physical aspects of that, stretching, making sure that the fascia is strong, supporting you, and vital energy building. But then also we would shift, of course, to the astral body, which is all about the astral ego, about traumas, about things, about your personality and everything. So I would go through the black and the white mirror, going through my personality, really taking the time, what's working for me, what's not working for me, really going in deep, talking about spiritual growth, right? Just really looking deep into the mirror. It's not, this hermetic training is not about, right, let's fly away of that direction. No, it's really confronting, confronting. Yeah. And at the same time, you're starting with this herb study, and that comes together because that works so good on this astral body, cleaning up, the soul, and and moving on from there. Which foundation, you have sort of this mid layer where you start cleaning up, so that the spirit, is supported in such a strong way.
Yeah, and I think because. Of course, it sounds, if you don't know how to feel energy and if you just started training, it might sound really woohoo. I totally understand.
Sure.
And for me, that was in the beginning. I was like totally, I was never rejecting it because I'm a explorer. I love to see different things. And I think what really opened my eyes was I went to Thailand for a year when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And something happened there that these people, or most people there, they have another way of looking at the world. And like my host family, I was staying with a host family, and they lived in a very rural area. And all of them had seen ghosts.
Yeah.
And for me, that was something out of like, that's movie stuff. It's not real. And that's how I've been brought up, to not see ghosts, to not believe in all the fairy tale stuff. So for me, it's hard to see. But then I live with these people, and they say, and I'm a 16-year-old, and they say, no, we've all seen them. They are there. They are there around us.
Yeah.
And so it was really part of their lives, and they lived with the spirits, and they lived so outside that this was their way of being.
It's just their reality, right? The day-by-day reality, and...
and so that really shifted for me, like, so that can be a possibility.
Yeah, but you get confronted with the thing. Well, confront is maybe the wrong word, but you learn that there's more than the physical body. There's this metaphysical, the beyond the physical thing going on, with everything that you feel, might see, and stuff like that. And in the hermetic training, that's something that we really move towards, to awaken these gifts that you already have as a human being, but might be because of your culture, how you've been brought up. Maybe, you know, they're somewhere buried deep in a closet, you know, so you want to awaken these things again, right? So I think, especially in the West, we're so far from that, right? It's just true.
So you're cut off, and because of, I think with Mark Rasmus's training, what happened is that this is what you felt and what you how do you experience when you were a child.
For sure.
Really.
For sure.
And then you think, I already had this, but I'm reinventing it. I'm back into that feeling again. But now with the knowledge of, you know, of a grown-up, and then it can work for you.
Absolutely. And this training is so about separation, right? This what Eckhart Tolle was already talking about in this book became so obvious in this Hermetic training, right? The separation of the observer, right? Which is the spirit.
Yeah.
And what you're observing, right? Might be energy, might be a thought, right? So this whole thing that was in the book about the ego, I think through the training there's become a shift, right? So coming from the ego and thinking about, there might be a spirit in me, it becomes more like, okay, now you come more from the spirit and there's thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you understand the shift I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And that has taken a while, you know, like a slow shift to be able to come from that, because there was, of course, a time, and maybe people can relate to this, is then when you start meditation, everything is like, oh, damn, there's another thought, right? Yeah. Oh, man, I'm still not able to shut off these thoughts. But that's not what it's about at all. You can have all your thoughts and your emotions because you're a human being. You are experiencing, right? And this is just information going through your system, either through thinking, feeling, whatever, really touching something. But it's the reactivity.
Yeah.
Right? The reactivity, the sticking that we're able to, we're letting go, and then it's all fine. You can have your thought, but you're just not touching it, right? Yeah. We talked about it in the last podcast as well, and I think we're going to talk about this some more because, you know, I think, I think true spiritual growth is that you are able to look at something in yourself, outside yourself, and not touch it, right? So that the stillness will accumulate around you. In this stillness, that's where the spirit is, right? And that's so there for me now. Yeah. And I see it in you as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right. There's such a development there. And
you can be more with yourself and especially when we do the training with, Akasha, white light training. You can really experience being in this universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and be connected on this really huge, level.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things Mark really pointed out was that you are always looking for what's underneath. Right? So if you're observing thoughts, you are also observing the place where there are no thoughts, right? Mm. So where are the thoughts coming from? So there, and also the thing with feelings, there's vital energy, but dive in the stillness underneath. You're constantly going underneath into the stillness, into the stillness, into the stillness. And this Akasha thing, the vacuum, right? We're living in underneath all things, that's where that's going. Yeah. And that's the stillness I'm coming from now, more and more and more, right?
And it wants to look for the stillness in things, because what I also experience is that when we look at movies, some things I just don't want to see anymore.
Right. No.
I don't want that in my mind. I don't want to see certain things because it doesn't bring me...
Well, they hit your soul.
Yeah.
Right? They hit your... And you're like, oh, why would I ever allow it, in my life? Yeah. You don't do that anymore.
Does it really help me to look at the news the whole day? I mean, I do know what's going on in the world, but do I want to be confronted with that 24/7, or
No.
can I just,
You don't want to stick to that, right?
Yeah, have a bit more distance. And
Exactly.
so who do I invite into my home? What do I invite into my home? What kind of stuff do I surround me with? So that also changes.
Absolutely. But can you also see that's not, because now you're saying it, but it's sort of happening.
It's happening.
And that's the beautiful thing, right? By awakening the spirit really wants to come through. It really wants to come out in your life, right? And it's really begging you almost like to give space for it. And once you allow that, there's that beautiful word, right?
Yeah.
Allowing it to be, come through, and for the ego to just step back and let it. I think that's even wrong what I'm saying here. It's not ego allowing the spirit at all. It's something else. It just wants to come through. Yeah. It comes through, and then different decisions.
Yeah. And then they can work together because and then they can collaborate into.
Hey, wow, if you are aware of your thoughts and, there's some very constructive, beautiful thoughts coming through, right? And that could lead to beautiful actions and could help a lot of people and, let your spirit come through. So I mean, that's the full circle. Is it full circle? I don't know. I'm still young, so
I'm like, we're not there yet. Right. We still have a long time to go.
Oh yeah. But it's been such an incredible journey so far, right? And Tai Chi has gotten a totally different meaning, right? Yeah. Also because of this other perspective now, and the way we teach, right? Some people I can move very quickly through this information because they're so ready for it, right? So. That's the beautiful thing as well. You learn this stuff, and then it's so beautiful that we also can teach this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then
every time I teach about this, there's a ton more I learn about it. So that's the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. So, well, Didi, what do you think? It was a good conversation, right?
Yeah. Really.
And nice to do some memory lane.
Yeah.
And so thankful for all these people we're talking about, right? All your teachers,
absolutely,
and Mark and Roel, and also students walking through the door, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and grateful for all the people looking at this and listening to us.
For sure, that's mind blowing, right?
Yeah,
was it 40 countries now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So
if you are the person in Iran listening to us, right? We want to shout out, right? Hi. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope this was a nice conversation for you too.
Okie dokie.
Okay.
Bye.